experienced our first section this morning. I'm welcoming you now to our second session of the day. Again, we wanted to split out the time in order to create a more convenient time for more of our community members to connect in at any point, just to say hi, drop in, whether it's your frequency in the chat or hanging out with us. We feel you, and thank you so much for being with us here today. As was reiterated in the first session, but I want to emphasize it again, is this is really born with the endeavor of wanting to create a more connected, interactive community experience. Certainly we are experimenting with different levels of technology in order to create that experience in the online community environment, which we know can be challenging sometimes, in really connecting to the human environment, the heart, and seeing face to face some of the people in our community and sharing our experiences, not only with the ascension process, but also with some of the tools and materials that are offered in energetic synthesis as an online community and online learning environment, of which each of us can take certain tools and experiences and incorporate and integrate into our own fabric in whatever flavor and whatever way feels best for us, in discerning the right tools and information that helps us to connect with our inner spirit and develop a consistent and dedicated spiritual practice that works for us in the practicalities of dealing with the environment that we deal with on planet Earth at this time. So welcome back to the second session, and we've had a little bit of musical chairs on our couch. So in the previous session, you met Jackie and Robin, and now we're introducing Yvon. So Yvon also does double duty. She has generously volunteered her time as a part of the mentors group in assisting, kind of handling some of the things that go on behind the scenes with requests and inquiries that we get through email, and as well was in Bali and is one of the HGS stewards. So Yvon, thank you so much for coming and making the trip, and as well the wonderful lighting you see on the set. This is provided from our lovely Yvon, who has really contributed in making the experience here look more professional in terms of our camera and our set. So thank you so much for all of your contribution that way. But as well, we didn't, so in going back to the first segment, we were talking about how we got connected and what the experience was and what brought us to this point in time. So I wanted you to share your experience with that, you know, how you got connected to us and got to this point of being a mentor and working with the tools.
Oh, wow, that seems like a lifetime
ago.
I know!
Several lifetimes.
Yeah. Although it's funny because it also feels like I've been with you guys for lifetimes. You know, it's really, I love that feeling. I actually, Lisa graced my path at probably what I would consider my the final stage of my awakening process, where it was the dark arts training, and it was at a conference that Lisa had been invited to. And it was interesting because I'd been part of it, that other organization, for about a year, and then participated in a couple of the conference as doing this, helping with media and whatnot. And it was interesting because it was my really first experience with the plethora of energies that gather at these types of events, you know, new age, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. And it was really fascinating for me because already by the time Lisa kind of came into my world, I was kind of confused. I got the galactic, it all felt like home, but there was so much distortion. And I was just like, what? There's got to be something else to this. This can't be it. And even though I resonated to a lot of it because it was, you know, the galactic piece, this something was missing, you know, the realness, and had gone through all kinds of insane experiences. And then at the end of that year, the next conference, Lisa showed up as a speaker. And literally, the minute she walked by, having been in this cesspool of energies for months, she walked by and I was like, I can breathe, air. Where did that come from? And I just thought, what is that? And then I heard her talk, her speech, and it was like home, that's home. And it was amazing. And that just changed everything, because my experience up until then was all dark. It was just all the heavy, everything, every aspect, the Crowley, all the really big dark stuff. And not that I asked for it, but it was part of just having to learn about it. And then knowing that there was something missing, but not understanding what, then I came into Lisa and the ES material. And what's interesting is, to make a long story short, right at the end of that conference, it was in the summer, one of the biggest pieces that she gave at that time was her I am God, I'm sovereign, I am free. And my life has been also about just being tormented, having everything coming at you, dream state, didn't matter, peers, teachers, students. My whole life was about being attacked and always feeling the victim and kind of going, what am I being punished for? Because you knew and you felt your connection to God. Religion confused me, but I knew there was something more. And so after her conference, she gave the, if you don't know what to do, and if you're having the I am God, I'm sovereign, I'm free, own it, say it. And I literally had my initiation just shortly after that, where I literally spent the night out on a plateau by myself and had a severe experience. And I just thought, that's it. I knew it was the peace, and I just using I am God, I'm sovereign, I'm free, and warding off any and all fear and embodying that. And from that point forward, my life changed. Nothing anymore. There was I used to get attacks at night, like we all did, where they'd freeze me. I experienced that my whole life. And then they project the rape scenes, the torment scenes, and you're numb. You literally can't move. And my whole life, you think that's normal, that you think that's just a dream. And then when I started utilizing, I am God, I'm sovereign, I'm free, I declared it 24 hours a day. I walked around with it. And it's amazing. I give that tool to anybody who's even remotely interested.
Yeah, we're just even a little bit of
just
an
a
opening.
little bit. And I'm like, just play with it.
That's
See,
what I say.
nothing else. They don't need to know anything. Just play with it. Just try it.
Yeah.
And every single time, they're like, oh my God, it stopped. Or, oh my God, I can sleep through the night. And it's huge. It's amazing. And you just, the more you use it, you embody it. I say it in my
you
sleep
embody it. That's so to hear that you had those previous experiences, which is the first time I'm hearing it, is like such a surprise, because I only know you as God, sovereign, free, like embodied, anchor, like, so that's.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, it's in. I hear it in an unconscious state. I hear it. I see it in my dream state. It's amazing how powerful. And so that's when I knew. I was like, this is the home I've been waiting for.
Fantastic.
My whole life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that even though that may be more advanced, because we were trying to stay in the ES introduction levels, but I do want to address this, because this especially is a part of what I would call the starseed blueprint. Meaning, again, there is no value difference in what our choices are in terms of the destiny plan and the blueprint and the reasons our consciousness is interacting with planet Earth during the end time cycle, the ascension cycle. However, there are teams of us, and this is clear that ES, energetic synthesis, is created as an advocacy and as an educational reference for this context. Because it is the starseed beings and the indigo beings that endure much more of the psychic aggression. And this phenomena, which is very complex in terms of, okay, why is this phenomena there? There's many reasons for that, but understanding that this phenomena does exist and that the starseed and indigo being has much more propensity being exposed to it through what you were talking about too, Jackie, in the first session, through sleep state, through astral paralysis,
Yes.
and through different levels of interference that occur in the dreaming state.
Yes.
So when we understand the
common.
dreaming state, when you sleep, the dreaming state is accessing part of the consciousness body that is your soul. So a lot of the times, especially starseed indigo being, who is here to be a part of the frontier of awakening for the human race. That is a part of the purpose, the group collective purpose of incarnating on planet is for that very purpose. So a lot of the times, the starseed being, the indigo being, doesn't have the full download about understanding who they are and what their purpose is and what they're here to potentially accomplish as a consciousness through whatever experiences. So there are at times entities that take advantage of that through other timelines, through other identities, through a lot of the pain and suffering that happened through the soul bodies, which is a collective human issue. But the starseed and indigo has much higher percentage of interference for that very reason, because of many of the things we've discussed in energetic synthesis community about the astral plane distortions and the hijack that has occurred at some of these particular levels in order to control consciousness on planet Earth. So this is very powerful and very profound to understand that sleep paralysis and a lot of the interference that can happen through the dreaming state is something that is very common. And it occurs through both histories of memories that we hold in our body that may have been traumatic through other times and spaces. So meaning there's soul trauma, that we've all had soul trauma. So there is some type of trauma that has occurred in the memories of the soul stream through the many different identities. And negative entities will tend to cleave on to those memories in order to track back into areas of your consciousness body, otherwise known as your aura, and through your aura they will connect and attach. And this is again attachments. This is negative entity attachments. So we can have attachments this way. We can also have portions of fragments of consciousness that exist through other times and spaces that may again be lost, or again this is fragmented consciousness units that are also connected to the body somewhat, and these fragments need to be rerouted. Either these fragments are our fragments, so we reintegrate these aspects of ourself, or they're fragments that belong to others and other energies, and we need to let go. This is what return to rightful owner is. What we're basically saying is that which fully belongs to me in my organic original spirit, I call back to me now. Simultaneously, I'm returning any energies, fragments, and energies that may have been integrated in my own being that really don't belong to me, because I don't want anything that isn't fully integrated and in alignment with my original divine spirit. So those mismatched frequencies from the fragments and attachments create a vulnerability and a weakness. And that weakness is exploited by unscrupulous entities of both human and non-human forms. So when we understand, again, more about psychic self-defense and dark arts training, this is a part of empowering yourself, because these are pieces of our bodies that we learn to become more empowered with. And this again, once we get more advanced and we can access the HGS as a tool, and many of the energetic synthesis meditations are for this very purpose, to reintegrate these aspects, these energies, these identities, these experiences that we have had, to be synthesized and harmonized in such way that negative entities, from whatever source it is, cannot capitalize on those weaknesses or vulnerabilities, because that is what they use. our own pain and suffering that is unresolved, not just from this lifetime, but from many other identities in time. So this is why the multidimensional perspective of understanding reincarnation, access into the soul matrix, again, which is a part of multiple identities that exist in the soul plane. Then we have the oversoul and monad identities, which are also another set of identities that exist within the monadic plane. And then we come into Christ consciousness, the avatar. This is where we go into the plasma light, which is what the 12D shield and the 12D field is preparing the planetary body and our bodies. As individual nerve cells of planet Earth, this is preparing our body as well to remember the frequency of our origination, our origin, our source code is in the diamond body of the crystal star Christ, or the 12th dimensional field. So again, we can't necessarily run with all of the distortions and the pain and the suffering and the histories and the deceptions that we have been privy to, the mind control that goes on here. We have to get beyond that, reprogramming the mind, coming into this understanding of our divinity is an energy, it is a frequency. And we cannot just hook into that frequency without severely creating an impact on the body, so we have to respect that process and understand that it's gradual. This is, again, we get beyond the ego. This isn't about measurement or we're in a race of competition. This is about being clear about where we are in the moment, in our own spiritual growth, so that we can best empower ourselves with what we require in the moment, not comparing us to anyone else within the community. This is something that we really stress and emphasize, to stay out of the comparisons. We have a whole range of experiences, and the community, we're attempting to, again, to continually equip the community with a range of tools at whatever levels we are at the process. We can find a place where we can connect into and utilize a tool that helps us to elevate ourselves out of cycles of patterns that are negative, out of experiences such as negative emotions or mental states, that we're attempting to go beyond those particular patterns that we have been entrained, not only socially, but through our family of origin, through the educational system, the medical systems, because again, all of this reinforces a material identity with an anti-human agenda that does not serve our spiritual growth, which is ultimately not there to serve our empowerment as a being. So again, finding the balance of that as becoming an awareness that we are multidimensional spiritual beings, and yet we have to recognize ourselves as such. The more we recognize ourselves as God sovereign free, the more support you will start to see the architecture of the planet, meaning your structure in your life, will start to rearrange itself to support that awareness that you are recognizing in yourself. So it's important to understand the universe will not recognize you until you recognize you. This is what it means to be on the path of self-knowledge, of self-mastery, mastery of the self. Who are you inside? What are the archetypes that you carry and embody? And those particular archetypes, again, a lot of the clues in the earlier stages of our development is looking at the astrological configurations, the numerology of your birth, the year that you were born. As we were born into this planet, into a third dimensional time-space field, we take on the imprint of the collective planet. So also there's lots of clues and patterns in terms of what you're here with miasms to heal in the collective force, because you came in at a certain period of time where there was a consciousness level that was collective on planet Earth. So all of these things in the earlier stages are really recommended and suggested, as feels resonant to you personally, to discover more deeply about your personal patterns, your personal archetypes. And again, our goal is to see them as an observer so that we can learn more skill set with the observer-witness pattern, so we are not identified with these archetypes where we are allowing these archetypes to control us, because this is a form of mind control. And this is the clever way of which some unscrupulous entities have taken advantage of the human race by using archetypes of drama, archetypes of control. So the more we understand our own archetypes, the more we understand our birth imprints, our family of origin imprints, the imprints we have received from the environment of which we are a part. These are very important clues in self-knowledge, which will serve you very well as you move through the ascension process and you start to understand more and more about the certain energies, frequencies, and configurations that are uniquely yours, but can be reflected through the community environment as a support system. So this ascension process is uniquely each person's individual, intimate process, and yet there are larger sweeping areas of the collective which are very exacting in terms of the macrocosm process. Spiritual ascension is a science. Once you understand the science, once you can depersonalize it and look at it from a distance, the ability to look at it passing by without needing to control it or totally understand it, because a lot of the mental paralysis will do that also. I need to understand this. So we find this balance within ourselves. The ability to feel is the ability to know. As we learn to trust and develop our skill set with higher sensory perception, this is what takes us on the spiritual path. And again, trusting yourself and having patience as you develop it, because it is a skill set, very much like building a muscle at the gym. You practice this every day. The more you do the meditations, more you do or participate with many of the treatments in energetic synthesis, this is also a tool to help develop your higher sensory perception, which is a function of the soul. So if the soul is damaged, your higher sensory perception is damaged. This is why there is such an agenda to create a closing of the sensory ability of the human being, the closing and the discrediting of sensitivity, of emotional intelligence, to again negate and repel the soul from embodying in the human being. And one of our goals, of course, in energetic synthesis, is something that is supported in the community, is to learn how to become a soul-infused personality. And as you move up the ascension scale, again, you get more confident, it becomes more strengthened in your core, and the discipline is not necessary at certain levels as you evolve, but in the earlier stages, given all of the constructs we're dealing with on planet Earth at this time, not to mention the resistance, the psychic attacks, the fear that is involved when people don't understand what you're doing or what this group is about. We start then getting these labels. Is this a cult? Is this a Ponzi scheme? Who is this woman? What is she saying? You know, and all of this becomes a part of the fear that is echoed in the human beings around you, because they don't understand the methods of this connection. Because it's true, it is a very different frequency, and I really feel this is the guardian attempt at another level of bringing a certain face, a certain technology, and a way to connect to spirit that is empowering the individual without the religious overlays, without all of this external overlay which requires you have to do it this way. And this is what I find in energetic synthesis, is a lot of people that come into the community don't realize here we're going to expect you to be responsible for yourself. And reading the member responsibility guidelines, of course, is a part of that, but also understanding that I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to share truthfully and authentically my direct experience and the experience of others that are obviously on the ascension path, because there's a wave of us on the planet at this time that are undergoing the momentum of the spiritual catalyst. So again, coming back to just finalize that thought with Yvon, I think this is very important, because it's true that ES was formed with a mission statement to really first and foremost help and support the starseeds and the indigos that have not had material, that have not had their mission handbook and don't know what they're doing down here, so that they can help to empower themselves with an information of larger context, and again, be able to be empowered in the face of such things as psychic attack, astral paralysis, and the kinds of interference that occur on the astral plane, which is extremely common for the indigo being. Again, understanding that this exists is a form of empowerment, of understanding, well, of course, if we look at planet Earth and we look at the human race, we can see all kinds of different ranges of development where people are at their consciousness level. We have those that are fragmented and abused and can be cruel and disconnected and then act in accordance to that cruel disconnection, or we have people that are very good-hearted and loving human beings. We've got a mix of all kinds of variation. So remember, this exists outside this plane, which would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? It's common sense to go, are all aliens bad? Are all aliens good? Are we the only ones in the universe? Really just relaxing for a moment and looking at the vastness of our cosmic space. Imagine the possibilities that are there. So understanding, first and foremost, you're a spiritual being. And this is, of course, something that we want to emphasize within the community as a whole, to recognize that, to support the language of that, because once we're on the spiritual path, when we have those that speak a similar language, it helps us to reinforce this, especially in the earlier stages, because when we work in the 3D world, we're not going to be having that reinforcement, and that's where confusion and doubt sets in. Remember that self-doubt is like poison. This is one of the goals, is to come into the clarity with yourself, to have the tools that help you move from confusion, which creates chaos. So confusion and chaos usually spins you in circles, and then it accumulates more negative energy, and then it creates experiences like Yvon was sharing. The less clear we are, the more types of strange anomalies and bizarre things may happen, where they may feel scary or you don't know what it is. And this is why having this context, especially in that situation, can be so very helpful. This is a phenomena that exists. I hope this series will speak more about that, because certainly I want to demystify this phenomena where we become able to understand it, at least at a certain level where it isn't scary. We take the mystery out of it. We don't have this ooh thing with the, because paranormal has been used that way.
It's common.
And
Yeah, it's very common.
We all have felt it. We've all experienced it. It's a very normal part of the process, and that's what the ES forum is about: is getting in there and hearing other people's experiences. Because then you don't feel so alone. Then you're not so afraid.
Yes.
Especially when the context comes in. Then you have the tools, and you're like, oh. Okay, I get it now. You start using the tools, and you shift to another level. And so, absolutely.
It's very true. It's very empowering when you get to a point, especially when you've had experiences like you describe, and you utilize the tool and it works. It's fantastic.
That's where it starts. It's that experience. And when
Yes.
you're coming into the group, we've talked about this. When you first come into ES, it can seem insanely overwhelming. It really can. You're like, oh my God,
and
information.
and a little hard. Like you're like, well, how do you connect
Where do I start?
in? Yeah, who do I connect in with?
But it's starting
Yeah.
small. It's grabbing a tool. Like we were saying, go through the list. There's a bunch of them. Find a tool and just start using it. Don't worry about grasping all of the terminology, and because that just gets mental. And if you're kind of vulnerable, you start spinning out with that, and you kind of miss it. Bring yourself back in, grab a tool, and just take 2 weeks and just use it and see how it makes a difference in your everyday life. And then, then you kind of, then you get stronger, you get it, because now you're experiencing it, and you kind of move forward.
And I think that there's a, even in the, just recapping what both of you are saying, is that there's almost a simplicity in just the basic understanding that we are manipulated to be disempowered, because somehow we give our complicit will away in doing that.
Absolutely.
So once we regain our empowerment, there is no room for the manipulation to happen. And I think that that's just like the thumbnail sketch of the simplicity of that.
Because it's almost like you can't really get to the next level until you've figured
Anchor
that
that,
out.
yeah,
Until you own
get the
that
game.
empowerment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's critical.
To the I am God, I am sovereign, I am free is just it's just a simple way of regaining that, those places.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that is, I think, really good to emphasize now, especially.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because
as
the-
things are amplified and absolutely.
Because it is building that muscle and building that anchoring of self, of knowing, really knowing in your cells, like intending until you really know it, but intending to be God, sovereign, free, and it builds.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so using that intention of, you're like, I don't quite believe this yet, but I really want this. I'm really intending this. I'm building it. And with the 12D shield, when you were saying grab a tool, you know, I'm just thinking of, again, how just empowering that, you know, was to me to use when I first discovered it and started 3 times a day. I was listening to it until I had it memorized. And that piece of testing with the 12D shield, that once you're envisioning yourself in it, something from the forum, something Lisa said, something else in your life, anything, you have this resonance, this boundary. You can see, okay, does this want to come into my heart, or does this not feel right? So it helps to develop that, what feels really in alignment with me. Okay, I've got my 12D shield, now I've got this baseline. And I love that feeling, whereas before having that, it was really like, does this sort of feels right, and over here it might, and I'm just not sure. And that is something that I've so enjoyed building and strengthening over the years. And now, yeah, I don't even think about it, but I love going back to the before and after.
Yeah.
And you brought it up earlier too about, because discernment is such a big part of this, that when you have the 12D shield up, you can run something through it, feel what it feels like in your space, and feel then what it feels like in the collective space, and then bring it back in after it's been out in the collective space, back into your space. You know, that's how I boundary test sometimes, just the discernment. And like, because when you put something out, you can put it out with your intention, but then it hits the field, the collective field. So then what is the discernment piece when it comes back in? Because you had said earlier in the first session, which is so related to, when I was going through the earlier stages, I was like, open to everything. That gives, you go through this open thing, you know, and then you realize, holy, you're getting clobbered because you're just like, I'm open. And so the 12D shield is such a great way of that discerning information on the personal and then on the wider collective level. And I've just found that really powerful.
And on an everyday basis, I mean, again, going back to the really basics. So you're saying, okay, well, when would I use the 12D shield? Or, you know, I got to go to work. Perfect.
Yeah.
Before, you know, and even my partner and I, this is something that, you know, I've learned and I've shared with him, because he's an empath, he's super sensitive, and he just gets the crap beat out of him. And I'm like, you know, try it. What can it hurt?
Exactly.
You're going to go and go to the grocery store. Try going once without shielding yourself, and then going again with the intention.
Perfect.
I amplify and fortify my 12D shield. I deflect any and all negative energies, and then walk through the store and see how different you feel. And that's when you start taking this and bringing it into every day. And then you start experiencing it, you start understanding how and why it works. And that shifts everything in your life. And that's kind of where it starts. Go to work, shield yourself. Get on a bus, shield yourself. The more you start doing that, and I think that also, we all battle self-doubt and self-worth. And when you start doing that, it starts reprogramming your body and your heart, because it starts saying, I'm worthy to protect myself. It is my right to protect myself. And then that also starts to shift something, because you're shifting your way of thinking about yourself, because we're so programmed to just go out there, spread yourself thin, just suck it up, drive on,
Push, push, push.
and yeah, so we are, and we're exhausted and we're beaten down, and we weren't ever taught to love yourself. It's okay to protect yourself. It is okay to shield yourself. And that in it itself starts retraining your body that, oh my God, it loves me. The being loves me, you know. It just shifts. It's incredible. And it's really important, because that's where the retraining happens on a cellular level. And it's by using those tools, those commands, you're bringing respect for yourself back to the basic level, to a cellular level. And then things will instinctively start shifting just because of that.
This is part of the process. I mean, I've heard this from people saying, well, I know I have a hard time with the 12D shield, because sometimes it takes time. It took me a long time to develop it, and you feel different things, you go through different things, but I would just keep intending it and keep bringing it through.
And mine always felt like my back was open. Like I could get it, I could feel like I could force field in the front, but then I felt like my back was wide open, so I had to really work with what that would be like to close up the back.
Well, and I love that, sorry.
And when someone reflected to me, well, I can feel this part of myself doesn't, like this of self-worth, that doesn't quite feel like I can claim that space, or doesn't quite feel, and that, the first time someone said that, I was like, oh, you're right, that's such a big part of this. That's part of working with the 12D, working to build it, that you're working with your lack of self-worth that we all have. It's because, you know, we're of everything everybody was talking about here, that, you know, building that and trusting that, and how that develops, and how integral that is with everything that you just said.
Absolutely.
And that is part of the 12D shift.
Absolutely, it is, absolutely, because it is us. And what I really appreciated, Lisa, I don't remember when you said it, but it was somewhere when I obviously needed to hear it, because I'm a very mental, I can be very mental, and I'm very visual. So with me, everything that you used to say, or meditations, I used to just panic, because I'm like, how's that supposed to look? Am I seeing this right? Does it, what about my shield? Is it the right, you know, and you get lost in that. And I was just like, God, I'd get so frustrated in the beginning because I couldn't visualize it. And then I was like, oh, I'm screwed up. I've just screwed it up, and now my 12 is not going to work, right? This is the mental looping.
Right.
And you had just nailed it, and you just kind of said, the intention, just, that's everything. Just intend it to be there. I was like, what? That's it? I just, oh, okay. And then I kind of gave up on trying to visualize it. I gave up on, and that made it so much easier to just start having it and going out and experiencing it, because I just intend, I can intend, that's easy. Just intend it. And then it kind of starts. Then when you get a little stronger with that, then you can kind of start kind of getting into the visual and holding your visual. But you kind of have to, it doesn't come always naturally right off the bat, and not to beat yourself up if it doesn't. Just the power of intention,
or not as spiritual, or everybody else has got it and you don't.
Totally.
Yes.
You're not progressing fast.
I must have a million implants, and I don't
I've
even know
got
it.
the lopsided 12D shield in the grill.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
My God. You know,
I'm not trustworthy.
somebody's going to see it and laugh at me, right? I mean, all those fears come screaming to the surface,
And they will keep coming,
they will
layer
keep
by
coming.
layer, you know,
Yes.
and that's
normal.
and that's the
normal.
development, of self-acceptance
Absolutely.
and self-love,
Yeah.
which is, to me, the thread that
Yes.
goes through all of this.
And we were talking about that earlier too. We were saying once this starts, you guys, peeps out there, it's uncomfortable. Just know that. This is not the love and light. Once I decide to get on this path, everything's going to get easier. No, it's quite the opposite. Because this is what happens.
This is real.
This is real.
This is real.
And
This is real. This
all
isn't fantasy.
these tools command
Practice.
that hidden issues that you really thought you were done with. You're not. Or now they're coming from 3 dimensions over, or another lifetime, or collective, or
layer.
ancestral. So get over the thinking, I'm over this. No, none of us are, and because it just gets deeper, and every layer is difficult. But like we were saying, it's like a big sliver. It is uncomfortable when it's surfacing, but man, when it is out, you just, that is what makes it worth it. And that's when you're like, I can't go back. I would never go back because this feels so much better, you know.
And this is, so there's the relief of like, wow, I've finally cleared that piece. My God, yes. Until the next layer comes up.
Right.
Well, that's so good.
Yeah.
But it is also, this is what we're here to do.
It is
this
what
is
we're
what
here
we're
to
embodied to do.
totally.
We're not embodied to like, okay, let's get this out of the way so then we can, you know, be
So we can
ascended.
just float in
It's-
pink clouds.
It's like this is the beauty of humanity
Absolutely.
is that we actually have the strength and we have the capacity innately, you know, at the most basic level for us, which is 12th dimensional.
Yes.
We have this. This is the polarity integrating, the push-pull, the making mistakes and falling on our faces, and having something intense come up and working with it. And I sort of sound like I'm saying so indulgent, but but I really I'm just trying to be encouraging. because,
Absolutely.
you know, it's
Yeah.
the process is beautiful.
Yeah.
The more you build that
Yeah.
self-acceptance,
It is
I
difficult,
can offer that.
but it's beautiful. It is what we're here to do. And it almost feels like also, I mean, for me anyways, that the stronger you get, you're more apt to be used to do your role. The stronger
Yes.
you are, the bigger jobs you're kind of handed because
Yes.
because you're not going to be taken down. There's a better
Right.
chance that this particular thing can actually get accomplished because you're not going to become a basket case. You're not going to fall apart. So it almost kind of
Yes.
feels like a responsibility. Like for me, anyways, part of it was it is my responsibility to build this level of strength because I need to go out and I need to be part of things and I need to hold my part. And if I
Yeah.
can't stand up straight or if I keep getting clobbered and I keep getting wrapped up in drama, I'm not doing my job. And so it is really encouraging because I've definitely found that as uncomfortable it is and you know, as we get there, but then opportunities come and you get to be part of missions, whether it's with ES or
Yes.
outside,
Yeah.
you get to actually be your part and help make it happen because you can hold, you know, your field and your space.
Exactly.
And there's nothing more rewarding than that.
Exactly. And that was a big part actually when we went to Egypt, which actually for those of you that may have not been in the community at that time, I believe it was in January of 2010.
June,
Oh,
solstice.
well, yes, but in January is when I was told you're going, right? And it was in June, and it was exactly that where everybody was like, "Are you crazy? You're going to Egypt in the hottest of the hottest of times?" And I'm like, you know, but it's funny. The third dimensional mind does not understand the orchestration involved when you're given a project. It's not up to me to just say, I have a wild hair today, I'm going to do this. This was, again, very definitive in terms of it's time, you know. So we went to Egypt, and I remember preparing the community and saying, look, this is going to amplify every kind of energy, any kind of vulnerability. Anything that's going on is going to be magnified times 1,000 because the energies in the portal that exists, which you can kind of see here with the Sphinx, you know, the energies coming through this area of our planet impact all of us, of human beings, whether we remember it or not. It's extremely powerful cellularly, and it will create all kinds of explosive emotions and connections and bizarre spontaneous events. And so this is exactly just in speaking to what you said, Yvon, about gaining strength in your core so that you're not knocked on your behind from these incredibly powerful forces that come from the emotional body, that come from mental forces, that come from the elemental kingdoms. We are interacting with an extreme amount of forces, not to mention human forces, non-human forces. There's a lot going on here. So when we start to come into some of these different projects or things within the community, you know, this is something that I always say, any time that the ES community is doing some kind of project, whether it's grid project, we went to Sarasota, we went to Bali, we have these projects that we are given, even the planetary emancipation grid work. This will have an impact on your person because of the spiritual growth potential, because of the soul histories that you personally may be connected to that area. So this will bring to the surface things to look at, things to clear, things to strengthen, things to heal, things to deal with, changes in your life. And this brings us back to understanding that ES community fundamentally is a spiritual catalyst, and it will catalyze your spiritual growth at whatever level you're at. It doesn't matter. So stepping into the field and understanding, this is something that very few people on our planet at this time understand, which is the law of exchanges and why the community has been set up in the way that it has. That when you become a member of ES community, and this is done on your own cognizance, hopefully, meaning that this is a choice that you have made, and you come to the side and you feel a certain impetus or an urge that I want to explore this. What is happening when you do that is you are making a consensual agreement of exchange. And that exchange is, I am, and this may be at a higher consciousness level, the soul level, or some other higher level of yourself is saying, I am consenting to wanting to participate with the Crystal Star host and the Guardian Consciousness body of work. And through this exchange, there will be a certain energetic influence upon your being, and this will be directly related to your own relationship to your inner spirit. So it's important to understand that the online community site is not only an ascension learning environment, but it acts as a spiritual catalyst. And through the laws of exchanges, this is why an exchange has to be present. When you go to that PayPal account, this is also about, yes, it's about supporting the site and material to make it possible, because without the membership, none of this would be possible. This is happening because of you, because you resonated to this. This is happening. This is why it's here. So all of us are collaborating as a group to say, look, there's something here, this quality of galactic information that I'm interested in, that I need to progress, I need to understand. It's a spiritual catalyst. So that exchange, when it occurs, is an exchange of activating your relationship with your inner spirit. Now, sometimes what will happen is we will have looky-loos. You'll have somebody that's just kind of dabbling or just kind of, looking for maybe specific information, and they think they're going to find it there. And that person usually dips into the field and then runs away really fast. Because when you come into energetic synthesis community, if it's a place that feels in resonance with you, it's true that there is a dedication and a commitment principle to ethics, to integrity, to treating people in the same way that you would like to be treated. These are the guidelines that are supported, and I would say something that I hold as a part of the energetic consciousness of ES community is to hold these ethical principles and standards of integrity, which are a part of the trickle-down effect, is which I hope will also influence the members of our community to learn how to behave and act in ethical standards with each other. Because a part of the spiritual development process is a part of learning how to live, speak, and act in ethics, spiritual ethics. This has nothing to do with morality from a religious or biblical sense where somebody is in damnation because of an action that they are judged. This has nothing to do about that. It has to do with when we are on the spiritual path, when we are connected to the forces of Christ, there is an ethical responsibility to maintaining the integrity of the material at the highest capacity that we can. Again, we have the human elements, we have the negative ego elements, we have the incredible constructs with the negative alien agenda and all kinds of complexity on planet. However, each of us, in terms of our responsibility of joining this community or being a part of the community, what I really sincerely ask you to do is to please, at whatever levels you feel comfortable in integrating into the community environment or interacting with the community environment, which again I hope to find more ways that we can do that, is to be authentically yourself. That's all. The online community environment, and certainly one thing that has been a learning curve for myself, is understanding what goes on in the internet and online environments where people are afraid to reveal themselves and for whatever reason create a facade behind an online personality which is not truly authentic to how they represent themselves in their life and in their world. And again, we're here to be human beings and to respect everyone's process. I know that each one of us has to undergo some development to get beyond our fears and persecution complex that we're going to be judged by others. This is certainly a mechanism of what I call the victim-victimizer software on our planet. This is a part of the negative alien abuse that has been put into the collective mind because so many of us have experienced the victim-victimizer archetypes being played out, where when we truly reveal who we are at a heart-based level or at a spiritual level, and then the person on the other side may feel threatened by that, they attack you. They may say some nasty things. And you were just trying to be authentic and who you are. And many times a starseed and indigo being especially doesn't understand that kind of response. Why are you reacting to me this way? I'm just being who I am. I'm trying to be honest and forthright. So in our community, one of the most important cornerstones that I really try to hold the strength and encouragement for our community is to be who you are authentically. To do your best to express yourself as authentically as you can, because that's what it means to be in integrity. How do we learn to live in integrity, speak in our truth, to the best of our knowledge at the time? This is not about judging anything we did in the past. I'm talking about this moment now forward. When we're creating community, how do we trust each other? It's when we have a bond and understanding that this is a community based on Christic principles. This is a community based as a spiritual catalyst. So as we become a part of this catalyst process, we're going to undergo a lot of different experiences that may create discomfort, resistance, fear, questioning. These are all healthy things to experience in the process of gaining the spiritual truth for yourself so that you have a pathway that works for you, because that's really what's most important. Using the tools in a way that support you. So knowing that this is a spiritual catalyst, that when you sign up and you become a part of the membership, there is absolutely no judgment assigned. It's up to you to decide, do I resonate with this? Does this make me feel good? Does this feel right for me? Only you can answer that question. I can't answer it for you, and neither any of us here, obviously. So it's important to understand that this is really presented as an empowerment tool for the individual. And yes, it's through a lens of one person's particular role with the planet, but that doesn't matter. The issue is that do you feel good with the material? Not are you keeping up with the Joneses, because has nothing to do with what energetic synthesis community is about, whether you can do grid work or not. Now, if you decide that that's something you'd like to learn how to do, energetic synthesis has all that basis of information fundamentally that will take you there. But again, it's a process that will require spiritual commitment, dedication, and commitment to ethics and integrity in living your life in alignment to your spirit, and also learning to identify darkness, learning how to identify negative energy or darkness is intrinsic on the path of knowledge. So this is something, again, you will see in our community. I won't be mincing words around the most accurate assessment that I can relay as a truthful communication to the community about certain events or experiences and things that are happening in multidimensional fields. Now, why do I do that? Not only do I do it because I feel I have a moral imperative to do it for humanity as a race and for the planet at large in terms of what's happening, it is also because the process of learning how to discern negativity or energy signatures is intrinsic and a part of the personal spiritual development so that you become more empowered with discerning what feels in resonance to you personally. So again, remember, in energetic synthesis, we need to take away the judgment. We need to work on tolerance and acceptance and learning. All of us are learning how to come from an individual consciousness and into group consciousness. So our community really is a prototype. Not only is an ascension prototype, there's so many things going on in this community, it's really fascinating. But one of the biggest things we're working with is how do we move into unity in diversity? How do we move from individual concerns into group concerns? The health of an organism, the health of a group, because energetic synthesis community, the way I manage or direct the resources of the community will always be based on the group health first. And sometimes people may feel that that is unfair in terms of some of the things that manifest because there are casualties in that. If there is one person who is draining resources that are actually designed for the planet or for the service of 200 people, there becomes an imbalance where things have to be adjusted. So it's understanding the group weighted average as well, that the course of the direction of the development of our community and its resources is related to the overall group health and that which is facilitating the guardian host's ability to have a human connection, meaning a physical matter contact and a construct of which the crystal star host can work through. And that, again, is my job to maintain. So understanding the overall objective of the community as a container. It is an energetic container. It is utilized for many purposes, not only for our own individual spiritual growth as a collective group, which is working at various levels of spiritual development, no matter where we are in the ascension process or the spiritual development process, it doesn't matter. It's a part of, again, accessing and exchanging with the group field, because what we want to create is exchange. Remember, when we talk about the spiritual catalyst of ES community, when you come into membership, when you are paying your membership fee, yes, it is supporting the new, it supports everything I do. It supports and makes this possible, but at the same time as well, in the law of energetic exchange, what you are saying when you make that commitment, when you're doing that every month, is like saying, I am committing to the process of my spiritual development so that, you know, I'm intending at least to use these tools with the intention to increase my relationship with myself, to increase my relationship with my spirit in your own way, however the tools are laid out, and feel best for you. And again, that becomes your responsibility, because again, we are not on the path of guru here. We are on the path of self-actualizing your divine will into your physical being. So that means it requires your responsibility to do so. But this is necessary in order to learn God Sovereign Free, which is the sovereignty model of the crystal star forces that are here bringing forth this material and trying to assist us and human beings on the planet, however this ends up evolving, to be able to understand this way of thinking, because it's a way of thinking, it's a philosophy, it's a re-education of everything that we have been told this reality is, and relearning it. So,
and so I'll just jump in again as a mentor, and seeing now so many people that have come in and jumped out, and you know, it's really, really critical to remember and emphasize, you know, what Lisa just said, and that's you are volunteering. When you come into ES, you're not just joining a chat room. You're not subscribing to a group. You know, what you're doing is, you know, again, as she's explained, you know, the ES is a body. You are voluntarily, whether you're conscious of it or not, to join this living body that is in the process of evolving, which means Lisa provides the tools, the context, the members provide a group in which you can merge with to go through your process with. But it's all about self-motivation. It's you. It is not Lisa's responsibility to handhold anybody through this process or the mentors. It's about, now it's, you could ask for help. There's a great mentors team, HGS Stewards, the information, we all kind of go, where is that? Or, you know, or I experienced something and you want to bounce it off. But the important thing to remember is it's about you doing that work yourself and carrying yourself through this process. It is not Lisa's responsibility or anybody else's, and you're volunteering for this when you join the group. And there are people, I from what I've witnessed, who have come from a lot of different New Age communities where that's kind of different, and they're kind of catered to, and it's kind of all, you know, lovey and fluffy, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But EES truly is about helping you get through your ascension process. And as we were saying before, there's nothing comfortable about it. So everything is there, but it's a voluntary process and you're doing the work, you know, and it's so important to remember that.
From the other New Age groups and communities, this one's not glamorous. It's, you know, it's not glamorous at all.
Yeah.
And along that, it's the whole idea that there's a lot of unsung heroes, like within it. Like there's, you know, like there just is, because of the specific assignments that different people have and carry. So, I mean, we do our best, but we have to endorse ourselves, and you know, it's just that's the level of accountability that happens here. And but the great thing is you participate in it and you see how how you're participating in it. So it is self-rewarding, but not in the way that other communities or groups do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, if you're looking for that, it would feel.
And that nothing about it is accidental.
Yes.
So once you've made that agreement, your teams are going to jump on that and say, all right, game on, let's go. Nobody you come across in that ES container is by accident. There is not a member that's going to confront you to bring things up inside you that isn't on purpose.
So while Lisa and everybody was in Sarasota, I was at the World Trade Center. That's where I was. That's where I got assigned. Those exactly the same days. I was like, I didn't even know it. I thought I was staying in Greenwich Village. And so I was at the south side of the World Trade Center, Armageddon program clearings. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Nothing by accident.
Nothing.
And you just go with it. You're like, because I knew I could never have planned it. I couldn't have laid it out. I was watching what the whole team was doing. I was like, okay, this is my piece.
Right.
And then you just, there you are.
But this piece on, you know, and on a big scale, and this is what you're saying, seems to me a little bit on a smaller scale, that just being in the forums by virtue of your commitment, you know, you're going to have an interaction with someone, or someone's going to, you know, might not be pleasant, might, you know, or whatever.
But there's a reason for it.
I really get what you're saying about that.
Yeah, and it's because I think until you really get in and really understand, and I'm so glad that Lisa brought that up, until you really understand what your agreement really meant. She said, it's a catalyst. It's a catalyst. You agreed to it. And so once you're in, everything's going to be done to push you forward as hard and as fast as possible. And we know human interactions, that's done brilliantly by coming up against personalities. It just is. It's not an attack. You know, because people will often come into the group and all of a sudden things are popping up and people are they're having these interactions and they get all upset and they think, what's going on? This is and it's like, well, what's it bringing up within you? What's being triggered? You know, obviously there's a reason. Let's look at that. You need to look at that. Again, it's not by accident, you know. And so it's really, you got to be ready to commit. Because it's going to start as soon as you're in. It's a commitment.
So have you had like outside therapy outside of ES? Like how did you learn everything that you're talking about that's so grounded and we just picked it up?
Yeah, life.
Because I
been
know
a big life.
everything you're saying is really reinforced in the community.
Yeah.
You know, so and you know, and I was just asking because I was thinking of either some of our members or going back to my own experience and all of the support that I needed. And when I first joined, I was doing a lot of emotional healing work at John of God's. And I mean, I have a master's in social work. I've been doing, I'm well versed in a lot of these aspects, but, I definitely was in therapy. I'm still in therapy. Like, I have a lot of outside support that I've gone to, and it has come to me when I've made the intention or said, okay, I need some help with this. Beloved families, please help guide me to I need another kind of support. And then let that come up and let that come through and work with it. And it's not for a minute, taking my own accountability and responsibility away. But I'm just thinking some of the levels of support that maybe aren't available in ES because, it's not a person-to-person. I mean, it is. Sometimes we make friends and ascension buddies we can talk with. And that's, a huge support, too.
I've seen nice connections happen just through a thread that might have gotten, or where people want to interact in a more personal, not group, and they find each other, online and kind of go through it that way, and that's a beauty.
It is a beautiful thing. I think that we keep talking about this too. The time is now. I mean, it's now. There is never. I mean, in all the time that I've been in the ES group, or even prior to that, have I ever felt the immediate response to help, to a need, to a question. When you are full on committed and you're there, I'm amazed now. If I need something, it is there. I mean, it's dropped in front of me. But I think, again, only because, and I love that you said that too earlier, when you said, you'll get acknowledged when you acknowledge. Your commitment to this work is your acknowledgement. Once that's taken for real, once you take it for real, oh my God, you are it's almost shocking at this point
it's
now.
Surreal.
It is surreal.
You live in complete synchronicity.
It really is. And it's you almost kind of, there's a little part of me that's from a past life that I know that keeps looking up like, I don't trust this. Wait, something's going to fall, because it's almost too good to be true. But it's there. It is now. And if you need it, ask for it and you'll get it, whether it's more resources, whether it's a pal, whether it's, I walked into this, I mean, Egypt was literally right after I joined ES.
Yes.
And I didn't know squat. I didn't know much of anything yet. And I walked right into Egypt. And I was just like, oh my God. And bloop, they gave me Paige. Hi, Paige. I know Paige is out there. They gave me Paige. And I was just like, oh, thank God. And it was instantaneous. But I was ready at that point. I was like, let's freaking do this, because I've been feeling and waiting for this my whole life, And so it was full on. But everything you need just really comes.
And on our Bali experience, and I haven't seen you since Bali, or anybody, but we were there, and I think all of us have traveled amongst groups and done. That was one solid group. There was
absolutely.
I mean, the could see why it was just solid. It was clean. It was solid. Yeah. Everybody was in communion, but totally self-reliant.
Yes.
And there was no drama. There was no chaos. Yeah. You could feel the allowance of synchronicity into the whole governance of the space that you led and held, and it was an amazing experience. It was the way it should be, and it's just not the way I had experienced. It really says so much about the powerful beings that are part of this community.
Thank you for that.
That was really
That's very
amazing.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. No, and it's important, I try to break it down in an analogy when we understand about bringing life force and certain forces into this density, even though it's easier now, much easier during this period that the portal is open, meaning through the ascension cycle, we're in the window since December 2012, which has allowed a portal and openings and connections to certain forces and levels of entities that we did not have access to. Now, at the same time, though, what most people are not understanding about accessing those particular levels of forces, the various frequencies and energies that we are a part, is that spiritual energy in the world of force maximizes its impact in the most conserving way possible. in so that the maximum influence can be manifested or impacted or influenced with the most minimal of effort. So what happens a lot of the times too is that people who are obviously, especially indigos and people in the New Age, are so tired, are so desperate, are so begging for an answer of something else. Because I really feel on planet Earth, with understanding the oppression that has happened here, the oppression of our spirit, the oppression of our heart, the oppression of our ability to creatively express. In the natural mainstream of what we know as third dimensional reality on planet, this is a very oppressive system, as we know, an anti-human agenda, which is behind that. So I feel that a lot of people get impatient because they feel, I've done this, I've done that, and nothing's working, and I'm just sick of this, and now you're telling me I have to learn all this crap, and I'm just done. Get me, you know, out of here. And this is, I know. And I want to appeal to that level of person, because I've heard this so many times also. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been doing this for however many years. And I know, and I'm really sorry. And I hope you can forgive me, because in the way of bringing forth the truth as I know it, the issue has been, unfortunately, that many well-meaning people, or maybe levels of which this planet could receive at the time, the information that was coming in 20 years ago is not the information that's coming now. Nothing is static. We are constantly evolving. And this level of understanding the material and also the change of host on planet Earth at December 2012 is a game changer, and it's a part of keeping up with the evolutionary process and understanding what's happening to the macrocosm of the planet directly impacts each one of us. We're not an island that is separate to what is going on in the collective brain of planet Earth. It impacts all of us. So as we become more patient, more diligent, again, these are working with what's known as the spirits of Christ, the conservation principle, you know, maximizing your energy, and understanding that spirit is very much, and understanding how energy is allocated is energy, and the relative power of that force will be allocated in the relative power that you can hold. So you can't expect your whole life to be changed in 24 hours unless you have completely mastered every aspect of your auric and multidimensional identity. So this is really the reality check of also understanding there are some naive ideas that have been propagated in New Age consciousness, that you're just going to chant some alms, that you're going to do a couple of blessings and everything's going to be okay. And yes, everything's going to be okay, but it requires your participation, it requires your dedication and commitment, and it requires your discipline. And there's no way out of it. There's nothing else that I can tell you in the most truthful, authentic, and honest way. It is going to take that. So please learn to accept that through the process as you undergo this, and hopefully in coming to this particular time that we are at, meaning we have connected to the galactic cycle, we have connected into the ascension cycle, and now is the time where more power in the relative use of connecting to these forces, but we have to learn responsibility and ethical integrity to the forces of which we are calling upon. We become more effective, and you will find clearings more effective when you are more effective. So understand that that is the relative edge of the leverage of the energy for using certain processes. Why do I have to use it 20 times? Why doesn't it work the first time? This is some parts. Some people will go there in the earlier stages. This is because your body isn't acclimated. Your consciousness is not focused enough. There isn't enough negative ego clearing. Now, if you keep on doing this, It will help clearing the layers. Well, you will get stronger, and you will be able to hold focus, and then you'll really start to see some effective change in your life. So it is understanding the process of this and understanding the use of energy. If you're not committed to your spiritual process, when you call in certain forces or you're working with meditations, your meditation is not going to be as powerful as, let's say, when I do it, because my life has been dedicated to the spiritual path. That doesn't mean that's what you have to do, but it means in understanding the relative power that will respond to you is how much power you give to it. And again, very much emphasizing the universe recognizes you, God recognizes you when you recognize you. And that's how the amplification of power occurs, which is a part of spiritual development. So again, if you're at the earlier stages, have patience, have diligence, because you will get there. This is definitely the result of dedication and commitment to serve your spirit over the material reality, or over the third dimensional hijack of the mind control. So.
And start by saying, I am worthy.
Yes.
I'm worthy and I love myself.
The self-love and the self-acceptance is key.
And could
with
you
that.
repeat again, because you said it in the earlier one, but I just think it's so important about the focus.
Oh, the power of the
Yes.
focus. Yes, again, in the first panel we talked a little bit about this. In the utilizing of the tools within the community, especially the meditations or certain negative ego clearings, like the refocusing techniques, right? There's a 5-step refocus, refocusing the negative ego, reprogramming negative ego through breath, different things like this. In the earlier stages, as we're learning to quiet our mind, and this takes a little time, it takes a little discipline, because in the earlier stages, and it also depends on each person, because some people are more orientated in their mental body. So you'll see as well, when we understand the various layers, we have a physical body, an etheric, a mental, an emotional, spiritual bodies, and people, the soul configuration will have one body it's more orientated in. Right. So you have people that are more orientated in their mental body. And this, again, is a masculine principle, so sometimes you'll see it a lot in the male bodies, because their principle is naturally aligned to the mental principle, so they'll become more mental. So the more overly mentalized we are, the more over-intellectual we are, we can get into paralysis with our mind. And we start, again, as you were eloquent, speaking about earlier, about your situation, about what you were experiencing. So as we're working with meditation, one of our main goals is to learn how to quiet the mind, to learn how to hold stillness in presence without a thought. How long can you hold concentration in your meditation? And again, I believe in the Crystal Aegis section, there are several sections that give you guidelines for this, to assist in the power of directing your focus through your meditations. The more focused you are, the more you can bring all of your being into this small space. Again, you're bringing yourself into a focus, like a laser. The more focused you are, the more laser you are, the more accurate you are. And therefore you will have much more efficient, effective, immediate, and I'm like this, clearings. Once it's identified and the focus is there, that clearing will happen. And so the power of your concentration, and this may be something we explore a little bit in the future. The last month's meditation about breathing was to kind of begin a little bit, focusing on breath, focusing on the nostril breathing in order to increase the power of concentration, because breath and concentration are very much related.
That's almost a whole topic.
It's another whole topic we could talk about. But in segueing from that, we have a fascinating Skype caller. I think that is Karen. Karen, are you with us? You are.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. She's back. How you doing?
From Australia.
Great, thank you. You all look great there.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you have anything to add in some of the topics we were discussing?
I think I may have lost a little bit of the conversation with trying to connect in on Skype, but it's really good to hear, what you've just been talking about, how to refocus and how to use some of those tools again. I've actually taught meditation for years, and when I get new students coming, one of the hardest things is to be able to take hold of the mental mind and just concentrate on the breath for even 5 minutes. And yet then they wonder, when they ask the universal God for some help, they wonder why they're not being listened to.
Exactly.
So I think bringing attention, like you just did, to focusing is very, very important, but it is a skill that takes some time to learn. Certainly at the start, you know, you really have to be quite strict with yourself and just concentrate on breath, even if it's breathing in, breathing out, you know, and shortly you'll find that your mind has gone off again. So you just bring it back again, always to the breath. And that is the initial skill, I think, for people new to meditation. Very, very important, because once you've managed to, you know, get a hold on that, then the other tools and techniques are so much more effective.
Exactly.
And it's almost like, don't be hard on yourself, you know, like starting out, don't go, all right, I'm going to do 20 minutes. No, 20 minutes when you're starting out is almost impossible.
Oh,
And
so
you're setting
impossible.
yourself
for
up,
me.
right, to
Yeah.
get totally frustrated. Start with a minute.
60 seconds,
Truly.
yeah.
Start with 60 seconds a day.
Gotta
Just
run a
go
timer.
there. True. Yeah. No, set a timer.
Yep.
And it totally helps. Start small. Don't set yourself up, because those attachments, those other powers are waiting for you to fail and beat yourself up, because they pounce in and they pummel you to the ground. So it's almost like, don't give them that, you know, honor yourself, start small, little pieces, and just keep at it and just do it consistently. And you'll find just naturally it expands more quickly than you'd expect if you start small, as opposed to going big, getting beat up, and then starting all over again.
Definitely, I think the commitment to a spiritual practice, even if it's, you know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, just to sit and breathe and say, okay, this is my spiritual practice for this morning, and maybe again in the evening, but do that every day. Even if you feel like you're getting nowhere for the first few weeks, suddenly it will click into place. But if you never sit, then you never get a handle on that.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for bringing that particular point up, because I think this may be in some of the older material, you know, about clearing negative ego, but this point wasn't really emphasized, you know, about clearing the mind. You know, we can go back a step further and go into following the breath as a part of increasing the focus and the concentration of our meditation. Because it's true that, let's say, last month's meditation or previous meditations may feel very advanced to someone who is not an advanced meditator. You know what I mean? If you're coming into the community and you haven't had a background of meditation training or skill, this may be like, wow, you know, it's very hard to keep your attention focused. So coming back to, just like you were saying, you know, simple breathing exercises. I mean, there's so many very basic. There is a basic breathing exercise in the Crystal Aegis section. And then, of course, a pranayama breath is the alternate nostril breathing breath. And immediately when we start focusing on breath, the mind has to release. So this also is a part of reprogramming the mind to lessen its looping, you know, because a lot of the looping is a program. Because we've done it so often, it becomes almost like a little button that's pushed, and then the mind starts going. And, you know, and you're like, oh, there it is, you know. So as you identify the trigger, you know, what is the program that started this looping? The breathing will flip the switch, so that you can refocus yourself and start focusing on that breath, and the mind starts to disengage, and then you can again focus on whatever that part of the meditation is, or just stay in the breathing. You know, as I don't know if you have a particular breathing exercise that you suggest, but there's a few on the site.
Yeah, I mean, initially, it's just being aware of your breath, because when people are new to meditation and spiritual practice, many of them have never even considered the breath, because it happens automatically.
Right.
You know, all the time that we're alive, there's breath there. But often people don't take a moment to even actually feel what the breath feels like to come in and expand and then release as the breath comes in and out. They don't feel it's the presence of the breath in the chest area. They don't feel the entrance and exit of the breath through the nostrils. So even bringing awareness to that is very new for many people. So I think, just being aware of the breath and calming with that, I think it's also really useful when we go about our daily lives and we're being triggered by some emotional stuff coming up that sets us off into a mental looping pattern. I think learning to recognize that mental looping when we're out and about in the supermarket, driving the car, whatever we're doing in our daily life. It's easier to see a mental looping pattern when we're sitting quietly, but sometimes we miss the fact that it's invaded our day-to-day presence. So being able to notice where the mental looping is in the daily life, and even if you're in the supermarket saying, "Oh, here I go again. I'm looping." Okay, recenter myself, breathe, carry on with your shopping, but have that awareness of other levels of yourself at all times, because it's all going on there.
Yeah, I know for myself, I literally had, for mental looping, had to make a pact with myself to stop talking to people who weren't in the room with me. I was like always having conversations in my head. I was like, what are you doing? I really had to work on that.
I need to sign that pact.
I was in the kitchen sink talking. It's mental.
Having the most interesting
conversations.
conversation.
Exactly. In the shower. Yeah, just another
With your boss
sign
or
of mental looping.
Well, one of the core practices also we have for that is that 5-step process. So just like Karen was using as an example, you're in your day-to-day life, whatever you're doing. You may be doing your job, you may be at the market, you may be dealing with your children, whatever the activity is. If you go into angst, or you go into negative or constriction, because you have to pay attention to your body. All of a sudden your body, when you're in that looping, your body will start to shrivel. It constricts. So when you pay attention to your physical body, what is it doing? Is it constricting? If it's constricting, then you know there's something impacting, whether it's emotional or mental. And a lot of the times in doing the breath, but also another effective technique is first, especially if it's a thought pattern that is negative or painful, or you're reliving something, you identify it immediately. Oh, that's my ego. My negative ego is at play. Okay, once you identify it, now you immediately distance yourself from the thought, from the archetype, from whatever was going on in that drama. It's now not a part of you. It's over here. This is my ego.
Not me.
Yes, exactly. So that immediately, just that step alone, distances yourself so that you can look at it from observer, and now you're not involved in it, because if you're involved in it, you can't clear it.
You don't have the clarity.
Yeah, exactly. You can't release it until it's distanced and you see, oh, that's my ego. Okay, so now that you identified that this is your ego, now you want to revalue its power over you. Wait a minute, ego. I didn't say I was committing to your authority. I'm committed to my spiritual connection. You are not my authority. You don't give me value. Meaning the thought doesn't value your self-worth. It doesn't tell you about your identity. There is no value that this ego is allowed to give you because it doesn't have authority over your being. So that's the second step. Now the third step is refocus. Whatever it is that has triggered this particular negative thought pattern, whatever activity you're doing, in the moment, if you can, refocus yourself. Now what is refocus? Refocus through breath, refocus through listening to music, refocus from moving yourself from the environment that you were in. Now the body is really interesting, and maybe someday we'll have a discussion on that and understanding archetypes of drama, because they're triggered through the neurological system. And a lot of this is unresolved or unhealed memories that are still in the fleshly body, that are then, you have an experience in the material world and it triggers a memory. And then that memory starts going zzz, and then the pattern and the program starts. So once we again heal the nervous system, we're healing the soul of that particular memory, so that this looping mechanism is not generated by the trigger that it was previously. And this is when you know you have success, when you don't have triggers anymore. because you can be in any kind of environment, or let's say there were painful things, breakups, someone hurt you, whatever, and this really created a lot of pain in your heart. And then you recognize you're with that person and that pain doesn't exist anymore. That's when you know the trigger is gone. And that's an empowering, freeing process. That is the result of this. This is the natural outcome. This will happen if you practice these tools. So after the refocusing, you have to figure out what the refocus is in the moment, whether you're at work, try to refocus, get up, go to the restroom, change your location, or the input or stimulus. This is through, again, breath, changing your thought, using an affirmation, using music, taking a walk, doing exercise, whatever it is that refocuses yourself from whatever had instigated that pattern. And then coming back into that observer of what happened. Okay, what can you learn from this? What just happened? This was a trigger. Why did that hurt so bad?
Yeah.
What was that? Now that's when, now that you are in observer mode, you can dig a little deeper. Maybe it's a past life issue. Maybe it's something that mom or dad said when you were 3 years old. There's so many different levels that our consciousness has absorbed information. So as we identify it, then we become free of the trigger. But using this process, either through Karen's example of breath work, no matter what you're doing in your day-to-day life, or this more 5-step process, as you learn this, you can apply it anywhere. And again, this is in the Crystal Aegis section. It's all over the forum, actually, right? I know you guys seen it. It's all over the forum. It's in the HGS manual. But it is, again, a part of a tool that you can use to refocus very quickly. And again, it becomes more and more efficient and effective the more you use it.
And again, it's so that also the point of that is you will have things thrown at you that trigger these triggers for that very reason, because the power is exactly that. When you're able to now not get sucked into that negative emotion, when you're now not part of the tornado, you now have the ability to feel it go off and at least go, no, and look at it. Okay, that's a huge first step. Now you're looking at it. And even if you have to step away and you do your refocusing, but then you can come back with clarity and trace it and go, oh, that's where it came from. Now you get to heal it. And that is so the power of not stopping yourself, or from stopping yourself from getting sucked into it, because that's useless. That does nothing for you. It doesn't help you move forward in any way. And it actually allows you to get vampirized. It's just a no-win situation.
Yes.
So the first step has got to be, and it takes a little practice, but you'll know when a trigger goes off because you're spinning. That thing's going, the noise is going, you've got a negative emotion, you're feeling angst, your shoulders are going up. Right in that second, not 10 minutes later, in that moment, spot it, pull away from it, and start exercising that muscle. Because the stronger that gets, then it's a lot easier to do that, because that is how we heal the triggers. If we keep getting sucked into it, you don't get that opportunity. So it's actually quite often I found the triggers are thrown at you for that reason.
Yeah,
it's not a punishment.
practice.
Yeah, they're going, will you get it already? God, how many times do we have to throw it at you,
Tennis ball machine.
Totally. Yeah, you're like, get
Take
it.
as long as you need.
Don't keep throwing
And then you
them.
think it's clear and you get a pop quiz,
Totally.
You're like, did you pass?
Oh, you thought you got it all. Mm-hmm. So,
I think also the fact that there's so many layers to these things.
Yeah.
You look at it the first time and you think, that's okay, I'm fine about that. And then it might come back weeks or months later in a slightly different form. And you go, my God, this is so deep and so painful. I thought I'd worked on it, but this is a whole new level. And I had that experience this week, actually, with some things that were going on in my personal life. I thought I'd cleared and looked at. And then this big whammy came. And I was very emotional about it. And then towards the end of that day, I started to realize that this was actually cellular memory of my parents' stuff. And so going in at that other level and just being able to separate myself slightly when I finally got the information that it was cellular memory,
Wasn't even yours.
and just observing it from a different direction as well. So I would like to think that it's clear this time, but we'll see. If there's another layer of that to be dealt with, who knows at this point.
But I think that's the beautiful part, though,
trying
right?
to breathe through that, trying to recognize that it's actually a good thing that these things are coming up and releasing, rather than being and staying hidden in the body.
And I've had to like learn to accept, you know, the being uncomfortable or being in the agitation of the clearings. You know, like sometimes because that's how it happens. It's resurfacing, and you have to feel it and bring the awareness to it. You know, but and have that willingness without any of the judgment or control that you know I would naturally like to apply to those moments, and just be with it.
Well, like, and again, and the stronger you get with it, like she's saying, then you start getting to clear larger, ancestral. Then you get to clear your family, because you can embody it, you can experience it without it throwing you off, and witness it, and then it moves on. And so that's actually great, because that is, it's actually, it's a wonderful feeling when you start realizing that that's the next level, that you have that ability, and that's part of the gift that you can offer, as your role, that you can start clearing bigger things and other things that aren't yours. And that's
And
really
I think
powerful.
it's so important too, I'm sure Karen can attest, that as a starseed indigo or galactic being that has come to this planet, the natural function is for us to do that. So a lot of the times, you'll see a different setup. And again, a lot of this has nothing to do with the value difference, but it has to understand the different roles that those of us have with the planet. So in a sense, like what we're describing right now, there was no choice in the matter for me since very small. There was always clearing that was going on. So we're also providing context to challenging adversarial circumstances that would have happened in our life stream with family of origin, with some of the social setups, because I know a lot of the starseeds are confused. They don't understand why they're constantly put in circumstances where minefields are exploding, and they're like, what do I do with this? And this is why when we're talking about the negative form and the transit gates and the different tools that we can use, we become empowered to know, oh, we're here to clear that. And I can clear that. And that's what I'm here to do. And again, I know, Karen, that's a lot of what you, through your history also, is helping people to understand their role this way.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, the thing that happened for me this week, as Yvonne was pointing out, I thought it was mine and I'd cleared it. Then I saw that it was my parents and I was working on clearing that. It actually also happened on Veterans Day in America.
Oh, how interesting.
Possibly. I'm sorry, I don't know where that noise is coming from. I think it's someone's phone over there.
Mine.
It's Mark's phone. We're keeping it real this end. But yes, looking at that and seeing that quite possibly there was a global thing going on, because it was all around, Armageddon, Veterans Day, my son joining the army on that day, all of these things. So many, many levels of that.
Yeah, and I think this year the date was 11/11
too. Try and
too.
harmonize the field and clear things at that level.
Yeah.
And it can be hard on us emotionally.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Wow, well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, after just coming through 11/11, Jackie was mentioning, I think that was Veterans Day in the United States was 11/11. So we have sort of like, at this point in the stage of what the planet is enduring, it's absolutely awe-inspiring. The various, it's like triple, quadruple, layers and layers all converging together now, and it's definitely a lot more intense, I think.
For sure.
So we really can't take anything personally.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Karen.
Thank you, Karen from
It was
Australia.
fantastic. Yes. for giving your input, especially on the breath work. I think that's really good. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Good to
I've
see you.
actually been revisiting many of the early techniques, particularly through the crystal aegis, and finding another level to them that I think I must have missed the first time round as well. So taking myself through that whole process, I would really recommend everyone should go back to the beginning at times and just remember it, because we pick things up at different levels each time we revisit. And, you know, there's so much clearing still for all of us, and maybe some of those tools we take into, you know, ancestral or planetary levels of clearing as we actually grasp and embody what they're doing.
Yes.
So that just helps, I think.
Oh, I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, great reminder. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll sign off now and continue listening. Thank you,
Thank
girls.
you
Bye,
so
bye
much,
in
Karen.
Australia.
Bye.
I like how she calls us the girls.
Love the accent.
Yes. Well, the other thing too, I wanted to give a little more drill down in terms of the detail about, okay, what is spiritual growth? What does that mean? You know, we have a lot of the technical aspects of a, you know, spiritual ascension, right? Understanding the embodiment of being initiated into frequencies that are a part of our being that exists in another dimension. This is a part of our soul matrix, right? The soul triad. We have these soul layers. We come in into the embodiment of the soul, and we move into the planetary consciousness levels, start going into the monadic oversoul levels, and this becomes a part of our initiation into these higher frequencies. We start absorbing them into our own auric field, our own consciousness presence. And then we go through an integration process. And so a lot of us, we say this jokingly and laughingly with humor, you know, it's a never-ending process. You know, we're constantly doing, you know, an initiation, you know, and an integration, and then it stops, and then it's again an initiation and integration, you know, and this is the process that we all undergo, and it's just kind of ever spiraling into this higher evolution, and really I think dependent on our personal blueprint and what we're here to do and this sort of thing. But really our goal, I think, at this time, because of the spiritual ascension of planet Earth, is to physically embody as much of our Christic spirit as we can, and the monad body really has to be stabilized in order to begin to create the container which allows the liquid light, which is the Christos form, which is a plasmic field, to be able to have a house, a container. So it really is, we're building the spiritual house, we're building the spiritual foundation. So in building the foundation of that body, I just want to kind of highlight or crystallize a couple of objectives. You know, what is the spiritual growth? What are we doing? As a part of the processes that we are involved with in that, as we're doing repetitive and a lot of clearing and healing meditation, we want to achieve certain spiritual objectives in the process. So really, one of the first and most important is learning to protect our own aura. Because what you're doing is you're protecting your spirit, you're protecting your soul consciousness as part of you to integrate within your being. So as you protect your aura, because you have to protect your house. Do you want termites in your house? Do you want fungus growing in your house? You know, this is one of the, I would say, errors in thinking with the New Age consciousness with unity. There is a challenge with actually using the word protect. People go, why do I need to protect myself? I'm like, well, if you had termites taking over your house, would you just spray them? Would you have a conversation with them? What would you do?
Invite them in.
Yes, but there's an action that's involved. And this is the issue with being in unity. Most people misinterpret being in unity as merging with anything and everything. And I want to say that that is not accurate. What you want to merge with is your higher spiritual source. You don't want to merge with pedophiles and rapists and satanic or dark forces, because if you do, and again, this is not in judgment, it's in understanding the quality of energy. When you see a person who is operating at a severely distorted or grotesque mutation within themselves, you understand that that is black, dark, what could be termed as anti-life energy or satanic or Luciferian energy. This is not to judge that person, it's to understand the causation of the actions that this person has chosen as a part of their expression. Because each one of us, we understand this is a holographic projector. We have to say, what movie do we want to play? What energy quality of energy, do we want to embody, and our being, our physical fleshly being, is a conduit of that spirit? There is a spirit of Luciferian consciousness. There is a spirit of satanic consciousness. There is a spirit of Christ. Those are the three main spirits. But when we understand energy, intention, and energetic vibration, this is what we mean. There's a spirit behind everything, or it's dead. We know what, a lot of us may know what dead energy feels like. What is dead energy? A lot of the times it's a satanic or a Luciferian force that has invaded a particular object, and that object could be an animate object or an inanimate object, because satanic force, let's say if it's used in satanic ritual abuse, an object can become imbued with the quality of that force. So what we are concerned about in energetic synthesis is the quality of force of which you are inviting and therefore allowing through your own direct consent to work through your body. And that choice is yours. That's not anybody's job to judge that. There is no judgment in that. But this is why we talk a lot about discernment of negative forces and understanding the overall agenda on planet Earth, because we want to learn to protect our aura from negative energy sources which erode our consciousness, which degenerate us. We deteriorate eventually if we do not correct those patterns from allowing negative spirits and attachments, through whatever their sources are. They could be our own pain, our own destruction to ourself, which is what addiction is. If we are destroying ourselves and creating destruction, may not be intentional harm to others, but this is also a type of satanic force. So normally when we think of satanic force, we're thinking about, Aleister Crowley or somebody crafting hexes in the corner, sacrificing babies. Yes, this is a more advanced and extreme level. But there's also, if we go down on the dial a little bit, this is also self-hatred. Mm-hmm. When we hate ourselves, we are destroying ourselves. We are destroying our spirit. And therefore, when we have self-hatred, through the consent of our own self-hatred, we can invite demonic spirit to actually invade our presence. This is obviously not a benefit for us when we're especially learning to not only empower ourselves, protect our aura, but live as fulfilled, heart-based, soul-infused beings of light. Yes, there is darkness, but what is the choice in terms of what you are allowing your conduit to be a transmitter of and a receiver of? Because your body, is an energetic acupuncture point on this planet. What forces are you going to commune with? Now, because you're discerning about the forces that you decide to invite in does not mean you're not in unity. But it is true to ask the question, how can one be in unity with an anti-life force that is seeking to destroy you? Until that being decides to make a choice to embrace something higher, there's not any satanic being that I can allow to say, look, let me love you into submission, because if they're not willing, that's their choice. I have no right to interfere with that being's choice, but I'm not going to be in unification with something that's seeking to destroy me. Understand that that is what has happened here in the world of forces. It's nothing to fear. It's to understand that everybody has a personal responsibility and choice to what they become a conduit for, who their authority is. Because once you allow that spirit, that demonic presence, whatever it may be, spirit of greed, materialism, avarice, lust, addiction, when these things become overindulgent to the point that you are destroying yourself, you are now communing with satanic force. This is not a judgment. It's nothing to do with judging these forces. It has to do with discernment. What forces are you communing with? In order to find peace, wholeness, and connection with God, we must choose the forces of spirit, of energy, that we are willing and allowing to not only be our authority, but to commune with us. And this is not coming from judgment. This does not mean judge others. It means discern energies appropriately in terms of resonance and allow every being the choice to make the decision based upon their own self-determination in the best way that you can. And you will find, based on the Law of One principles, our community will always be supportive of that very fact, because it's coming from me. And all of us, of course, are in agreement and feel that there is, when we superimpose upon another, we are engaging with satanic force or Luciferian force. One cannot superimpose their will upon another, even if you believe it is good for them. It is not up to you. The only thing that you can control and change is within yourself. And this is really what the community is about. So learning to protect your aura from negative energy sources like negative entities, and of course the result that those entities and negative energies have upon your life. Because those negative energies and entities, if they are attached to you, will create recurring patterns of pain, of suffering, of addiction, of disconnection, of unhappiness. Because when we are disconnected from our spirit, we are unhappy. And we can see that as a testament to the planet, really, in terms of disconnection. This is why the feeling of emptiness, void, sadness, depression, trying to feed that depression with something external. This is what happens when the void starts to take over within the body of the human being who is soulless, spiritless, and doesn't know how to contact spirit to reanimate their body and being. Also, something very important is learning to identify deception, illusion, and other material forces that trick us into believing something that is false is real. So this is, in other words, saying to be free of mind control. We have to come into a spiritual maturity to understand what we're dealing with on planet Earth at this time, and it's a sobering experience. This is not to take away the joy and the spontaneity and the connection that we can have with Christ and with Spirit and with the things that bring us happiness in the day-to-day life. But it's also having an accurate assessment of what is happening on planet and understanding that we're not an island to ourselves. We are part of the human race. There's 7 billion of us down here. Look at the quality of the planet Earth as a collective, and look at the quality of spiritual connection and humanitarian values and joy and abundance that is in the world at large. Now, some of us have been very successful in creating a lovely environment for ourselves. In fact, all of us here are the most privileged ones. And I'm sure our why have agreed to step into this role because there are many people on this planet, children, animals included, that are not as privileged as us. So a part of the spiritual ascension process, once we get over our own issues and we want to become a part of the cause of supporting humanitarian and unity values on the planet again, we will start to recognize that what we're doing is impacting the whole. And that we're here to shift the planet and the 7 billion beings and help them too. It's all of us together. It's not just these little exclusive sects that have access to certain information and we're the chosen ones. No. We're here with certain levels of information. We understand the value of that information as stewards. We don't possess this information. It belongs to the human race. So we protect it for the human race. And when you protect your spirit, you're doing that. You're collaborating and contributing to the planetary whole in this way. So as we learn to identify deception in the world, the illusion, and we start disconnecting from that matrix. And again, we have to integrate in the world of which we have to work with. This doesn't mean disassociate. It means see it as it is, be willing to be mature enough and developed enough to look at it without allowing it to emotionally overwhelm you. And this is, again, sometimes why I say some things that may be troubling. I know that I talk about things like rape and pedophilia because I think it's important for you to know about the numbers that this is happening. This is not a small, segregated few thousand people. We're talking about millions of people on this planet at this time. Not only are they spiritually enslaved, they're being prostituted, raped, taken advantage of at really horrific levels. And so at some point in this process, whether it's now, 20 years from now, or 50 years from now, we have to ask ourselves a question as a part of the human race. Why are we allowing this to continue, and what can we do to be a part of the cause of making this shift? It starts with us. Change starts within. As we participate with the spiritual ascension process, we are connecting to much larger issues. This is not at all to overwhelm you with the responsibility of that, but to understand that you are making a difference when you are willing to be open and adaptable and flexible to connect with this information and start to change the way that you've been thinking or taught to think, because we all have to deprogram ourselves through this process in order to learn the language of ascension of our spirit and to see the larger agendas at work and why we're here on planet Earth at this time, that we're also here to support humanity and the planet. So as we acquire this deeper knowledge of what has happened to planet Earth, the galactic histories, all of this context, we start to see the extraterrestrial origin of humanity. We start to see the current agendas of other entities influencing our world. And this, again, is a part of being a productive cause of understanding why the planet is in an anti-human agenda. Because we could ask ourselves, okay, was this the result of a natural progression of evolution, or have we been influenced in some way to create anti-human agendas? Because it would seek to just be common sense, right? That as an intelligent species, we again would take care of the planet. It would be in our best interest to have clean water.
Right.
It would be in our best interest to have high quality food.
Imagine that.
It would be in our best interest to take care of our educational systems, our medical or well-being systems, holistic systems. We would develop these systems. In fact, they are developed, but they are squashed. Why? Because they're not feeding the corporate machines. So understanding that, I think, is very helpful at certain stages, not to be disempowered to that information, but to be empowered, to understand the larger parts of which we are also playing parts in the spiritual ascension process.
Can I just add one?
Oh, sure.
Just only because I got an email from, a dear person in my life right kind of before I came, and it was that very question, and it was, there's a really confusing aspect of understanding that we are the larger picture, that we are the earth and we are the universe, and that concept of when you heal it within, you heal it without. And so the question that I hear all the time is, well, what about all these fundraisers, and what about contributing to the AIDS thing, and what about the cancer, and what about the starving children, and what about the, are we turning a blind eye if we don't jump in and, and I don't understand, if I'm a spiritual person, am I not supposed to, and it's a completely understandable, we are very compassionate. I mean, these are brutal issues that we are surrounded with, not only globally, but in our own reality, in our own cities, in our own towns, the homeless, the starving, the unfortunate. And it's almost like the answer to that is we can expel, in a time when we really need to be reserving energies, we can expel it into 1,000 different causes. It's not about bad or good. You can, because of course it tugs our heart. But are we really doing that issue a true service by exerting, first of all, energies into a program, into a game that was pretty much created to suppress humanity? Or when you understand we are a universal being, that if you instead take that focused energy into healing those wounds within you on a collective level, because we all hold it, you are having a far greater effect on that cause than to go out with picket signs or to get all emotionally spun out in it. And that's a really tough one for people to grasp and even to explain, because there's that fine line of, well, what an insensitive bitch. And it is tough. You want to say, well, it can appear that way. Well, aren't you upset? Well, aren't you going to? And you want to say, no, I'm reserving that energy, because instead I'm going to direct it inwards and I'm going to heal it through the grid so that it really gets taken care of. as opposed to on a 3D level where we're throwing away money and energy that we don't really have, you know. And it's funny that that comes up, you know, a lot.
It's a very difficult and complex topic, and I agree completely with you that the more we spread our energies in unproductive ways because we don't know ourselves, we actually are less effective.
Yeah.
So we have to check our motivation and say, why am I interacting with this, whatever it may be, organization? And is it in alignment and appropriate for me to do so? Because what happens is, let's say, if you're motivated by guilt, if you're motivated because someone said, oh, come on, I'm doing it, you do it with me, you know, your friend. You're doing it for other reasons outside of your own inner inclination. Because there are people that are obviously here to be bridges between the third dimension and the higher spiritual realms, and they're put in certain places to be in that role. However, what I have seen is that a high percentage of the time it is a waste of energy because the people at the top that, or in the middle or at the bottom, that may have good intentions are not understanding the forces that they are engaging with. And therefore they are not being productive because unfortunately we have to grow up and realize that 90% of the time when there are these particular charities that are being created that are funded by corporatocracies, it is not to heal or cure or to do anything productive for the humanitarian topic of which they are exploiting. What they are doing is they are collecting scientific basis to fund insurance companies and academic institutions with consistent funds that keep propagating the same old of never finding the cure for disease because nobody wants a cure for disease because it's too profitable.
Yeah, and I find that there's a manipulation.
It's a manipulation.
Into the victim-victimizer programming.
Yes, exactly.
Again, you know, and that's not the place, which is why, you know, when you get to the HGS, that's so amazing because it actually does change the codes.
Exactly. Yes.
But yeah.
But it's a very difficult one.
Because you feel like if you stand still, you're being, you know, complicit in it.
Well, and watch the marketing too. I find that's a really easy one. If you're really like practicing discerning energies, and that you can, this is where you can apply something like that. Watch the commercial, you know, or even that person standing at your door, you know, feel it. You know, like what tactic are they really using? And it's usually guilt.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Or shame.
Or shame, guilt, right? They're taught that as a way of appealing.
Yeah.
And you can feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it. And that's why, again, like if you're observant and you're in the now moment and you take every opportunity to read energies and feel it, you can feel this string like pulling at you. And you're like, wow, you know, it's really fascinating. And that's,
Yes.
that's a
Yes,
big
and
one.
so exactly. So in just continuing the thought of finishing the objectives is having access to tools exactly for that, to clear not only negative thoughts and negative habits, but also reading these energy signatures so that we can discern the difference. Is this self-generated or is it coming from something externally generated? And this is called self-sourcing. Can I self-source where this is coming from? So this is again a part of the emphasis with the tools. And then of course once learning how to master the self, just as you were saying, then we have greater impact in clearing ancestral related issues, the collective human histories and timelines that we work with in ES. This is all about now going into timelines that have impacted all of us at some level, you know, but many of the human race at this point is not aware that their body in itself is a timeline and recorded with memory. It's a concept that is still very far away from the average third dimensional mind to realize consciousness is global, is cosmic, is universal, but at this level the memories that have been recorded in planet Earth are in our body. That's what cellular memory is. So not only is we have planetary cellular memory, we have galactic cellular memory, you know, we have histories, And so as we learn the mysteries of ourself, we start to really hit into some surreal information that is outside the context, of course, of what our history lessons actually taught us. So we learn actually the real history, the galactic history. So when we reach a degree, when we are actually healing ancestral and family origin patterns, you know, our goal is really about embodying peace. The Christic spirit, the spirit of Christ, is synonymous with peace. So also a measurement of holding peace within yourself, peace within your heart, is a measurement of your spiritual progress. How much peace can you hold? Can you hold peace in the center of chaos, which is also a form of neutrality? Can you hold peace no matter where you're at, no matter what's going on? And that's really also a modicum of understanding spiritual stages of development, is how well you hold peace in your heart, no matter what's going on. Because the peace is not contingent on what is happening externally. The peace is omnipresent when you are in your spiritual source. You will hold this and you will be able to receive and feel the comfort. I don't even know how to describe it. You know, having this feeling of connection all the time that's omnipresent is a feeling of peace that is abiding, that never leaves you. And this is also obviously one of our objectives in energetic synthesis, is to learn how to spiritually develop oneself to find peace. So it's really important as we work with the tools, don't make comparisons. Don't put up measurements. What's important is to learn resonance. What resonates with you personally, not with somebody else. Again, you can share information and get context, but don't measure your value based upon what someone is or isn't doing. This is, again, the freedom of being within the information, the tools, and sharing from a non-judgmental context and learning discernment on your own to pick and choose what works best for you. Now, understanding that through our life experiences, there are going to be things sometimes that we're going to have to do in our life, to like character building skills, life experience skills that are required in your spiritual development. And sometimes it requires some maturity to realize, you know, I may not like this job, I may not like this current situation, but learning to turn it around and access it as a learning tool. What am I learning from this? Where are the parts of my personality, my psyche, my emotional state that I can learn more solidity, stability? You know, when we're talking about GSF behaviors, remember we had the archontic kind of agenda and understanding what those behaviors are, and then the antidote of God, sovereign, free behaviors that you can move into when you find yourself in those particular negative states. You can help to identify that. So as you come into more of those behaviors that are God, sovereign, free, you want to be able to pick and choose, okay, I want to apply this in whatever situation you find yourself, and try your best to accept the circumstance as it is with awareness, learning, and commitment to your spiritual truth, because this will be the fastest way you can shift out of negative experiences, of things that may be a drudge that you don't want to deal with. Because again, remember, the spirit also has intelligence in learning how to work with 3D modeling. Remember, I was a tax accountant before all this happened, you know, and this is because I really feel it gave me a grounded perspective in the physical reality of what was motivating the third dimensional mind, money, the power, the abuse, the tax. All of this was really of value to me at this time because it gave me the perspective I needed to not be way out there in the cosmos, but to be grounded in a physical reality where this could be made practical in some way. So a lot of the times we're doing things not always pleasant, but they're there to develop our character. We need to have the experience. So again, the process is resonance, non-judgment, and acceptance through the process. You can help to shift these things. This is also why our group membership tends to have a little bit of a older median age, meaning I would say 40 and up. About 40 and up is probably the median age of the community, because a lot of times when you're 20, you don't want to sit here listening to some woman tell you, look, you need discipline. You want to go out and have a little fun and experience life, and I certainly can understand that. But again, understanding the tantamount part of what is happening on planet today is the quantum leap of consciousness that's available. This is a time to do it. This is why we incarnated on Earth at this time. So understanding, again, there are biological age markers which will also be a part of the spiritual development process. Not to be too hard on yourself if you're in your early teens or 20s, because there's some life experience that's required also in terms of integrating the overall process. We tend to have more of an older, because as you become naturally biologically older, there's more experience and you're more willing as well to have the maturity to accept the discipline that this is required. So as we ascend our consciousness, just in our final thoughts, if you're still with us, I don't, are you okay? Do you need, anybody need a bathroom break?
Yeah, we're good.
Probably ready. But I want to just end with integrating the law of one exercises in our day-to-day life, that we can expect spiritual growth as we even work with just the basic law of one principles, which is the foundation for all of the energetic synthesis material. So the core of it, the seed of it, the essence, the spirit of it will be founded, grounded, stabilized in the law of one practices. So again, those law of one practices, they're in several places on the website, but those particular steps of understanding them, practice unity consciousness. What does that mean? It means we're all connected. It doesn't mean you have to love everybody, like everybody. You know, again, but it means see it as an aspect of yourself, a mirror of your own reflection. We are interconnected. We're on this planet together. There's no way to separate that. So this is a part of unity consciousness. It doesn't mean open yourself to parasitism, allow yourself to be martyred so that your blood is sucked dry. And this is what energetic synthesis is really here to help you learn in terms of protecting your aura. You're not here to be a martyr and allow your spirit to be dissipated or sucked dry by parasites. This does exist when we're not connected to our spirit. We can become, the human race can become vampiric. We become vampiric when we are not inner sourced. If we are not sourcing from our own spirit, we will look for something on the outside to consume energy. And this again is when we are attached to realities we want to control in order to reinforce our perception of reality. When we're mentally rigid and we need something to be a certain way, this is vampiric energy. You are taking energy from the outside and you are shaping it to manifest what you want. As we become inner sustained, this is something that is certainly not required. It is, again, a natural exchange with the environment, and you cease to be parasitic, you cease to be vampiric. This is why the 12D shield is so important, because as you learn to use the shield, it builds the body to self-source. You are sourcing your own spirit. You are not requiring other spirit, other energies, or some guru to give you Shaktipat in order to manifest your consciousness experiences. You are self-sourcing. This is our emphasis with the 12D shield. So practicing unity, but through self-sourcing your own spirit, which again means practice loving yourself, which is the second part of the law of one practice. How do you love yourself? Can you love yourself? Are there some places of yourself that you are not loving or accepting? So practice loving yourself, and of course that comes with practice loving others. When you are loving yourself and you are in self-acceptance, then you can accept others. You don't need to control others. You don't have judgment of others, because you are able now through your own self-love to allow whoever that human being is to be who they need to be at that moment without judgment. And that's, again, so practicing loving yourself is also not only a gift to yourself, it's a gift to others, because now you can allow others safely and securely, because you're not insulted or offended or overwhelmed with other people's choices, because they're not your authority, your spirit is. So as you, again, allow others to be who they are, you are then now giving the gift of loving others through loving yourself. And of course that comes to loving earth and nature when we were talking about earlier the collective connection, responsibility to the privilege that we have in supporting the earth and supporting nature. Practice loving the earth and nature. Many of us have our own way that we do that. Practice service to others. Okay, so service to others, service to self. Meaning that in this context, the more that you are in service to your spirit, the more you are in service to others. So it's understanding that through the action of being of service to your spirit, you're actually in service to others. This is interconnected component and a part. So how beautiful is that? If you are actually serving your spirit, you're in service to others automatically. So this is a part of being in service to others, which again, the law of one practices. We're almost there, practicing consciousness expansion. So through energetic synthesis or whatever tools, expanding your consciousness is a part of your spiritual practice. Anytime you meditate, anytime you're working on your spirituality, you are actually shifting yourself to practicing expanding your consciousness. And so this is a part. Consciousness is not static. It's always moving. It's always evolving. So we want to, again, have an internal check. Am I evolving? Am I digressing? Where am I going? You know, am I rooting into infantile behaviors? Because that's a digression. You know, being able to have that self-measurement. Am I expanding? So again, the measurement of that is peace. The more peace in your heart you can hold, you know that you're constantly expanding your consciousness. And then the last is practicing responsible co-creatorship. So that again is learning to be in integrity, speak the truth in your word, treat others respectfully. Again, the golden rule in our community is treat others as courteously and respectfully and with consideration as you would want to be treated. It's very simple, but you know, certainly we can all learn to better improve our communications with each other by using the adage, the golden rule, treat others how you would like to be treated. And again, you'll find, I think, some amazing, beautiful individuals in our community to connect with. So I want to thank you again for joining us on our second leg. I think we're coming to an end. I don't know if our wonderful panel has any private thoughts,
Thank you so
final
much.
thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to sign off now. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this has been informative and helpful and supportive. Certainly all of us here are a testament to understanding the recent energies. The solar flares have been quite intense. So I hope that this has been supportive and empowering in your process wherever you're at. We all send our heartfelt love and gratitude for your collaboration and your contribution to our website and our energetic container. Much love to you all. Thank you, and hopefully we'll do this again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great space, great
Thank you.
information.